While drivers battle wheel to wheel and push the limits to secure stunning pole positions, it's often forgotten that the performance of their cars hinges on a multitude of factors, with the circuit being a major player. The texture, composition, elevation changes, and even the colour of the asphalt all wield a significant influence over the level of grip available to the drivers. This grip, or lack thereof, can tip the scales between victory and defeat for any driver on the grid. Imagine if every circuit had the same characteristics. The racing landscape would be predictable, with teams qualifying in the same order week after week. So how exactly does the circuit impact the outcome of races? Let's find out. Back in the early days of Grand Prix racing, way back in the 1920s and 1930s, the races were quite different from what we see today. Races were done on public roads from town to town. But these weren't sleek machines like we have now. They were heavy, upright, and not the most reliable. And those races, they were long, impossibly long by modern standards. Fast forward to 1950, and Formula 1 as we know it today was born. The first World Drivers' Championship kicked off with a bang at the British Grand Prix in Silverstone. That marked raced the beginning of what we call the modern era of Formula 1. Since then, Formula 1 circuits have undergone a massive transformation, and the evolution of these tracks has had a big influence on race outcomes. Tracks can be divided into two main types based on their layout: high downforce tracks and power tracks. Each type favours different characteristics in a car. You probably heard the term high downforce and power tracks thrown around during F1 coverage. While they're not official terms, they help describe the different vibes of each circuit. High downforce tracks like Hungary, Imola, Singapore, Spain, and Monaco have lots of twists and turns that demand excellent cornering speed. On the other hand, power tracks like Monza, Mexico, and Canada are all about raw speed, with long straights where cars can really open up. So why does this matter? Well, it's all about finding the right balance. Cars that are great at cornering might struggle on the long straights of a power track, while cars built for speed might lose out in the twisty sections of a high downforce track. It's a delicate dance of engineering and strategy that keeps us on the edge of our seats every race weekend. Preparing for different types of tracks in Formula 1 is no small feat. Every circuit presents its own unique challenges, and teams must adapt their cars accordingly. Take Monza for example. It's unlike any other track on the F1 calendar. Teams bring a specialised package here that they won't use anywhere else during the season. Why? Because Monza demands a different approach. With minimal downforce needed throughout the lap, teams opt for rear wings so slim they're practically flying without one. These low-profile wings cut through the air, reducing drag and maximising speed on the long straights. But it's not just about aerodynamics. Teams also have to consider the strain on the engine and the relentless braking from full speed. Then there's Spa, a legendary circuit known for its long straights and breathtaking corners. During qualifying, cars scream down the track, pedal to the metal, from turn 1 all the way to the end of the Kemmel Straight. But here's the catch: Spa isn't just about speed. Sectors 2 and 3 throw high-speed corners into the mix, forcing teams to strike a delicate balance between straight-line speed and downforce. It's a constant juggle of settings and strategies. What about the Mexican Grand Prix at Autódromo Hermanos Rodriguez? On paper, it should be a power track with its long straights and medium-speed corners. But here's where things get interesting. Despite the layout suggesting otherwise, teams usually opt for full downforce setups here. Why? Because of the altitude. Situated a whopping 2,285 meters above sea level, the air at the track is thin, which means teams can crank up the downforce without worrying about excessive drag. Later in this video, we'll delve deeper into how altitude impacts race outcomes, but first, let's shift gears and explore another critical factor: the influence of track surfaces on racing outcomes. Now, it's not just about the layout. Degradation as a result of track surface plays a significant role too. But what exactly is degradation? Well, it's what happens when a tyre loses grip due to excessive heat buildup, and different tracks pose different levels of threat when it comes to degradation. High degradation tracks like Silverstone, Spa, and Suzuka push drivers to manage their tyres carefully to avoid losing precious lap time. These tracks, with their high cornering speeds, put immense strain on the rubber, Contrastingly, street tracks such as those in Baku, Monaco, and Sochi are considered low-deg circuits thanks to their less abrasive surfaces. But degradation isn't just about the track surface. Elevation changes can also throw a wrench in the works. Take Spa-Francorchamps, for instance. Its legendary Raidillon de la Rouge demands teams to tweak their setups to handle the intense downhill and uphill sections. With vertical compression forces hitting around 3G, cars need adjustments to stay grounded. Then there's a Red Bull Ring in Austria, where elevation brings its own twist. While compression isn't the concern, track warp becomes the talk of the town. Turn 3's uphill entry and downhill exit creates a crest, unsettling car balance as drivers navigate the spiral effect. What challenges do elevation changes provide F1 drivers? At the Portugal Grand Prix track Portimao, drivers face a unique challenge due to its hilly terrain. Even though this track hasn't been used since 2021, it's still worth mentioning because of its notable elevation changes. Unlike other tracks where the cars might feel the impact of elevation more, at Portimao, it's the drivers who really feel it. The up and down nature of the track creates blind spots at turn 8, 11 and 13, making it hard for drivers to see where they're going. This not only makes learning the track difficult, but also makes it tough to go fast during practice sessions. Turns 10 and 11 are especially tricky because they're right turns. You can't see the first turn well, and then you quickly go downhill, which adds to the challenge. Overall, driving on this track is unpredictable and tough due to its elevation changes. The dramatic changes in gradient also play havoc with the grip levels, particularly on the exits of steep downhill sections. As the car negotiates these drops, the load under the tyres reduces, impacting grip and making it a bit more difficult for drivers, especially at high-speed sections like those at Portimao. But over time, drivers get used to it and learn how to handle these tough spots carefully. Beyond the technical stuff, elevation changes also make things tougher on the driver's body. Portimao isn't too bad in this regard because drivers go through its ups and downs pretty quickly. But other tracks, like Spa-Francorchamps, are a different story. Take the famous Raidillon de la Rouge for example. It squeezes the drivers and their cars, pushing them hard. Despite this, drivers have to stay sharp and smooth, handling the track with skill and precision. Now, let's talk about the altitude of racetracks. Let's take a ride to the rarefied air of Mexico's Autódromo Hermanos Rodriguez and explore how its lofty altitude impacts race outcomes. This track sits really high up. The air up there is thinner with less pressure than usual. This makes things tricky for teams and drivers. While other F1 circuits hover close to sea level, Mexico City's high altitude presents a unique atmospheric problem. With an ambient pressure of merely 780 HPA, roughly 20% lower than the norm. But what does altitude mean for an F1 car hurtling around the track? Simply put, it's all about the air. As altitude climbs, air density plummets, leaving less oxygen available for crucial components like aerodynamics, cooling systems, and the power unit. At 2,285 meters up, there are about 25% fewer air particles, which messes with how well the cars perform. But it's not just about the cars. Altitude also changes how the race plays out. While there are good spots for overtaking, like the long straight at the DRS zones, altitude can make some cars perform better than others. This adds some unpredictability to the race, mixing things up and keeping everyone guessing. But there's nothing to throw more unpredictability in an F1 race like weather conditions. Whether it's blazing sunshine or pouring rain, every change in the forecast adds a thrilling twist to the world's most exciting motorsport. In Formula 1, it's almost always sunny, especially as the season begins in the warm Middle Eastern sun before heading to places like Australia and China. But don't be fooled by the sunshine. Hot temperatures bring their own challenges. When it's hot, there's less grip on the track, and F1 tyres heat up and wear out faster. Teams have to carefully choose from Pirelli's range of tyre compounds to strike the right balance between durability and performance. In F1, not every race happens under clear skies. Sometimes the heavens open up, turning tracks into slippery battlegrounds. Racing in the rain is a true test of skill and nerve, as seen when drivers like Max Verstappen show their talent in the rain-soaked chaos. When it rains, F1 cars switch from slick tyres to grooved ones, designed to cut through the water and find grip. But it's not just about grip. Reduced visibility and flying debris make wet races even more challenging, turning them into high-stakes battles for teams and drivers. And then there's the wildcard of intermittent rain, where the strategies come into play. With conditions changing by the minute, teams must decide whether to stick with their current setup or roll the dice with a risky pit stop. It's a high-pressure game of tactics and timing where split-second decisions can make or break a race. But weather isn't just about rain and shine, it's also about the unforeseen forces that shape the track. Wind, for instance, can play havoc with grip levels, adding an extra layer of complexity to an already demanding sport. Whether it's a gentle breeze or a fierce gale, everyone brings new challenges for teams to overcome. And let's not forget about humidity, the silent killer of energy and endurance. In races like the Singapore Grand Prix, where the air is thick with moisture, drivers face a grueling battle against the elements. With cockpit temperatures soaring to sauna-like levels and the track's 23 corners delivering a relentless onslaught, it's a test of physical and mental strength like no other. These are just some of the factors that influence race outcomes on F1 circuits. Now we want to hear from you. Which F1 track do you believe is the most demanding for drivers? Share your thoughts in the comments below. That's a wrap for today's video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated with our latest content. Until next time, take care and see you in the next video.